Hi, everyone. This is Samantha Varner from Prosymmetry. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Tempus Resource version 8.2 webinar. We're really excited to show you everything that's new to Tempus, whether it's new features or enhanced functionality. The good news is if you have premium support, you can reach out to your customer success manager right now to go ahead and schedule that development or lower environment upgrade. So make sure you do that. We'll get you on the schedule to get you upgraded. And then in about a week or so, production environments will be able to be upgraded as well. You will receive an email, or if you don't for some reason, or you want to just connect with your CSM, feel free to reach out to them and they will be able to get that information to you. So like I said, if you have premium support, contact your customer success manager to get upgraded, to get that scheduled. Just a reminder, there's no cost associated to upgrading. All of our versions come free to you. So please reach out and get on the latest version. Release notes are available to download from the handout section of today's webinar, so make sure you do that. If you don't have a chance to download those, they will be available in the Tempus Resource Help Center following this call as well. And then, of course, if you want to share a recording of today's webinar with any of your teammates, or you just want to review it again, it will be available on our YouTube probably tomorrow afternoon or so. But with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Matt Baker to conduct today's webinar. So thanks, everyone. Matt, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Samantha, and hello, everybody. Glad that you all could come join us today on today's webinar, going over some of the new functionality in version 8.2. So we have a lot of awesome new functionality to show you, some enhancements throughout the entire product. And some of the main areas we're going to touch on today are the new file management system. So you're going to be able to download and work with files within your projects and resources. So very exciting stuff. A lot of overhaul to the sheets and sheet template area. Most importantly, one of the main areas is going to be on the resource side of things. So you're going to be seeing your sheets and your sheet templates being able to be associated to your resources, as well as some very cool new ways to work with the sheets and the information within there, as well as on the attribute layout side. So going into a project, viewing your attributes, there's been a huge revamp and a lot of additional functionality added to that, mirroring some of the workflow options and the workflow forms that we've seen in the past. Besides that, there's a lot of additional functionality throughout the product, but for the sake of our time and make sure that we can cover all the new functionality today, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. And the first area I am going to address is some of the additional accessibility options that we've added. So Prosymmetry and Tempus Resource in particular we've been making a lot of adjustments to the UI to make it more accessible for our users. So we're going to continue that effort, but some of the changes that we have made on that front within here is first kind of the font that you'll see within Tempus. So it's actually a very minor change, so you may not even notice it, but there has been a slight adjustment to the font throughout the different screens within here, just to accommodate for some of that accessibility. And one of the things that you may have already noticed already is there have been some slight adjustments to the tile colors within this screen, and you'll see these without a lot of the other screens as well. So if you're an administrator and you navigate to admin settings, you will see that the color palette and the color of the tiles have changed from the previous version. And you'll even see that more so if you go into data sync, you see different colors here. On the report management side of things, you're going to see a wide array of different colors, just something that's more accessible for our overall user base. And then lastly, one of the areas that we have also adjusted is the check-in and check-out buttons and some of the buttons within or throughout the product. So if you go into a project, for example, we open it up, you will see a slightly different color on the save buttons, the check-in and check-out, as well as most importantly, the contrast of those buttons on the screens. Just wanted to make sure we knock those out. There's some additional enhancements and just a continued effort on the Prosymmetry side to make sure that we are making the product as accessible to our users as possible. But with that being said, I will want to move into like the first area where we have some major enhancements, and that's going to be on the file management area. So a little bit of background on this. We have had a lot of our clients and customers always asking, can you manage some of the files and upload files to your associated projects or resources within Tempus? And it's just something we haven't been able to accommodate. However, within version 8.2, we have added the ability to do so within your projects and resources. So if you navigate to either your project or resources, and I'll start with project in this case, and then open up a project. Within the menu up here in the top right-hand corner, you will see a file management option. So these are going to be files associated to that particular project, just so you can have additional information or anything associated to it. If that's any contract information associated with the deal, notes on this project, any information that you just need to upload, you should be able to do so within here. It's very easy to work with. You go to the file management area. Within here, you then see all the files that have been uploaded within here, the type of file it is, the file size, who did it, and when it was uploaded on. And then you'll have options to either delete or upload additional files within here. So just like any other file management system, you go ahead, upload files, you go to the directory that you want to upload. You can see I have a couple files within here already. And let's say I just wanted to upload my risks once more. I already have it. So if I were to delete it, we do it again. We can go ahead, upload it, and then that file will be now within Tempus for any user to be able to download that file and view the information as long as they have the rights to do so. So there are some restrictions on the file types that you can upload. I won't go through all of those, but if you go up here and hover over this icon above, you will see all the different file types that we currently allow. So this is on the project side of things, but you'll see something very similar on the resource side of things. So if we navigate back to the home page and go to resource management, we go ahead, open up a resource here, and then go to our menu up above. You will see the same file management option where you can then upload files. So let's say you needed to upload the resume of a particular resource, any particular information that is stored in a PDF or a text file that you need to have within so you can view it at a later point in time. You can absolutely do so. Just hit upload file, and then we'll see, let's go ahead and associate the resume for this resource. So that way, if we need to ever view it in at a later point in time, we have it right in front of us. So we have integrated the files as well as to some of the just functionality that you typically would work with within Tempus when it comes to your resources and projects. So for example, if you're looking to clone a resource, we can go back here and let's say I wanted to clone Colin Moreno here. We can go ahead and do so, and you will see an option to clear the files. So you can bring those files over to the new resources that you are creating, or you can choose to clear them depending on the information that's associated to it. And you'll see a very similar function on the project side of things as well. So if you're looking to clone your projects, you can go ahead, you'll see the clear files option. You can choose to either retain the files that are associated to the existing project or remove them and then start fresh. And one of the things I also want to mention, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into the attribute layout side of things, but I do want to mention that you can add file options within the attribute page itself. So let's say, for example, you wanted to give your users the ability to upload files, but you don't want them to always have to navigate the file management. You can absolutely do so as long as you've added to the layout. And so if we scroll down here to the bottom, in my case, I have added that file area. We can see all the files associated to the resource, and you can choose to drag and drop files into this panel, or you can use the upload file button to associate those files to the resource. And you'll see the same exact thing on the project side, so we won't go through it, but it's going to be the same sort of functionality, as well as for your workflow projects. You can do the same by adding it to the workflow form if you'd like. Heading over to the project side of things, very similar to the cloning option, we do have our template options where you can create projects based off your existing templates, or you can import particular areas of a template onto a project, and files have been integrated with those as well. So if I were to go ahead and create a project, and I go down to here and I see my small project template, I can go ahead, you have your options that you've seen before, your attributes, planned and actual allocation, demand, build team, but you will also see the inclusion of the file management. So if you wish to bring over the files that are associated with the template, maybe those are templated information for risks or anything that would be associated with a project that you just want to have that template associated to, you can absolutely do so and just make sure you bring it over. And you'll also see the same functionality if you're just doing a partial import from a template and specifying the information you want to go over. So if we go up here into the import from template option, down below we will see that file management, and you can bring those files over. So a lot of capabilities on the file side allow you to have that information in the system. You do also have full options to report all this information if you'd like. And so if you do go to your report management area, and I've had a couple reports set up, but if you want to aggregate the files that are associated with projects, you can absolutely do so. In this case, I can see, oh, these are all the files associated to my Apollo Phase 14 project. You can see I have the release notes as well as the risks, but you'd have a list of all the files within there, as well as all the projects that you have if you want to aggregate it, as well as you have options to work with any of that information. So if we open up this project, or excuse me, this report, and we go over here to my project dimensions, I believe, and we should see our project file dimensions. You will then see file name, file type, size, updated on, and updated by. So you can pull any of that information if you just want to start aggregating some of that information surrounding the files that are associated to your projects. And just like we've seen with every file management area so far that we've covered, we have the same functionality on the resource side of things. So if you do also want to do the same thing on the resource side, you have the same resource file dimensions where you can pull in that information. And so the last thing I want to cover on the file management side of things is just the permissions governing the ability to do so. And so if we head over here to admin settings and within role management, there'll be two separate permissions governing access to files within Tempus, and those are going to be within the project and resource roles respectively. So we go to project roles, and if we go all the way over to the right, you will see one new option called access documents. That's going to give your users the ability to either view or edit or have no access to the files or documents associated to the given project. And same thing on the resource side. So we have the access document. It's going to give you view, edit, or no access to those particular files associated to the resource. So very excited to have this information in here. A little bit later on, we will be going over some of the options that you can do programmatically with some of this information since they have been exposed in the API. But with that being said, I want to move on to the next area that we've added some major adjustments to, and that's the sheets and sheet templates. So sheets have been within Tempus Resource for 4 major versions or so. So it's been a pretty staple part of the product for a very long time. And we needed to adjust that and make some additional enhancements because there was a very big need to have this on the resource side, as well as change the way for which, or adjust or give additional options to users on how they can actually interact with their sheets and put in that information. So we have added some of those adjustments within 8.2. And to start things off, I'm just going to go over some of the sheet template options and some of the changes we've made to that screen. So I'm going to start off here by going to admin settings, and we'll go to the red tile for sheet templates. And this is going to show you all the sheet templates you've essentially created, but you will see some additional fields within here. So the first thing that will stick out to you is now we have options for all project and resource. So resources now can have templated sheets as well as custom sheets associated to them. And you can denote, in this case, your sheet templates, the ones you want to view, by going here, and it's going to filter out to show only my project as well as only my resource sheets within here. So additionally, we have added some options within the grid down below. You can see over here on the right, we have the entity type, and that's just associating if it's a project resource or resource type of sheet within here, as well as we've added some options over here. You'll see an export option, and we'll cover that in just a bit, as well as you will see this pin icon. So one of the additional enhancements that is will definitely help the usability for you working with sheets is this pin option. And this is just going to allow you to pin a particular sheet template to the menu within a project or resource. So I'm just going to navigate back really quickly just so we can cover what that looks like. But essentially, I have a sheet pinned on my resource as well as my project side of things. And what that will mean is if I go up here to my menu, you will see this option down below, and it says resource profile. So my sheet template is called resource profile. You can see this icon is going to denote that it's a sheet template, And that's just going to bring you directly to that sheet template instead of you having to navigate to the sheets area and go through it. So this is very valuable and very useful, especially if you only have one sheet, or if there's a sheet that most your users are most likely going to navigate to. They can go ahead and just have it as an option to click from, giving them a little bit more, saving the clicks to get there and them a little bit more time. And you're going to see that on the same side on the project side of things. So that has been added to the project menu as well. But going back to my sheet template area, we can go ahead and create a sheet template here. And it's going to be very similar to what you've done before. So you have the option to provide the name of the sheet. You also have the pin option if you want to pin it without having to do it within the screen. But most importantly, we'll also have to specify the project or resource size. So this is something that is new. Like we've covered before, you have to specify it's going to be associated to your projects or your resources. Outside of that, if we go back, we do have that export option, and this transitions into one of the new pieces of functionality on the sheet side as well, and that is giving you the ability to import your sheet information associated to your project or resources. So you will see within data synchronization, if we go to Excel, we have a new data sync option called import sheet, which is going to allow you to import that sheet information directly into that sheet template. So one of the things about this particular import is it is going to vary, but depending on what sheet template you're currently utilizing and what sheet template you're looking to bring this information into. And for that very reason, we have given those options like we saw before within here to just export it directly, since it will vary from sheet template to sheet template. But let's say, for example, I wanted to import some information for my issues onto some of my projects. Very straightforward. All you have to do is export. You see that it has been downloaded on my machine. We can go ahead and open it up, and it's going to provide you the template that you need. So the first step is it's just going to give you, or this first tab is just showing you some of the information that you will need. And then if we go over to sheet data, we will actually see the required and optional fields within here. So over here on the left, we have entity type, project name, and template name in green. And so we'll just need to specify what that looks like. Entity type is just going to be the name, if it's project or resource. And since this is a project-centric sheet, I can go ahead and just type out project. The project name would be the name of the project. So I know I have like an Apollo phase 14, as well as you just provide the name of the template, which I know is issues. And then lastly, within here, all you'd have to do is fill out that information. So the ID of this potential issue maybe is 1000, the date that it occurred is today. And then notes, let's just say my screen is not loading. Something along those lines. With that, what you could then do is import this directly into Tempus, and then if you open up that sheet template, you will see this information. So you can add multiple projects within here. So if you wanted, or as well as multiple rows associated to an individual project. So if I wanted to have, let's say, 4 of these, I could bring that in. If I wanted to do the same thing and change the name and associate to a different project, you absolutely could, as long as the project exists within Tempus. The one thing you do need to be aware of when it comes to importing this information, though, is it only can handle one sheet template at a time. So if you have multiple sheets that you're working with, you will have to do multiple imports and say, okay, well, I'm importing this information for my risks, and then maybe it's on the resource side and you wanted to import information associated to skills or something along those lines. You could do that as well and do it that way. So you just will have to have multiple templates and multiple imports if you're working with different sheet templates. However, you can update multiple projects or multiple resources as long as they're associated to the same sheet template. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this. And once you have that information to run the import, very straightforward. You just go to your data sync, Excel, and then import sheet, and you can drag and drop it in here, and you'll go through the similar process that you've probably seen in the past when working with the imports with Excel. Okay, and then one last thing I want to bring up on the sheet template side, before we go into the actual sheets themselves, is we have added those reporting options for your sheet templates on the resource side. So we have had them on the project side since the inception of project sheets, and we wanted to make sure that we did include them on the resource side as well. So I have the sheet open. We can go over here and we can see these are associated to a sheet template, and I'll just go ahead and edit this up. And in this case, I went to my resource sheet templates, which is that new area. We can see all the sheet templates created against my resources. In this case, I was looking at resource profile, and then I have certificate information, expiration date, and some of just all the custom defined fields associated to that sheet. And I just drag and drop them in here to see what that information is. So let's say I need to see the certificates associated to Beverly. I can go ahead, I have it all in one aggregated space, or I could always navigate to the individual resource and see that information if needed. Perfect, so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm just gonna save this once more, and then I'm gonna head back to Tempus Resource, to the home page, open up my resource column here so we can see the resource sheeting side of things and what that looks like. So over here in the top right hand corner, you will see that sheets area, as well as like we covered earlier. Since this is pinned, I actually have the resource profile over here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and open that up, and it'll bring me directly to that sheet. So by default, it's gonna look like very similar to an Excel file. Up here at the top, we do have information associated to the custom columns that we've defined, as well as we have added clone options within here as well. So if you want to clone the sheet from a other particular sheet in here, you can do this with your templated as well as non-templated sheets. However, we also added some additional functionality within here just to change the look and feel and how you can work with this information. So the underlying way the data is structured will remain the same. However, we have provided some additional option to make it more list-like and work with the information slightly differently. So when you're on this sheet view for a templated sheet, you will see this edit and list view option within the grid. And if we go ahead and select on that, it's just going to change the look and feel of the information. All that information still resides and is associated to the particular sheet. However, it's just formatting it a little bit differently in this list-like view. So in this case, we can still see all my information. I'd see the certificates that are associated to my resource in this case. However, you'll have options to add new ones if you check it out. So if I check out the sheet, you'll have this option here, and it's going to give you a modal window and like a form to provide that information. So if I had another certificate to add, I can go ahead and do so. And my spelling's always terrible. I can go ahead, provide the date that it's issued, provide the expiration date, and then I can also do the next course date if I like, and go ahead and hit save, and it's going to add that directly into the grid down below or that list. So just one way to work with that information within here. It's just a little bit different than the grid view, but just an alternative option if you'd like. You also have a lot of different options to kind of group and view this information a little bit differently. So you have your group by options up here in the top right. So maybe I wanted to group it by issue date. I could do it by the next course date if I need to see what's coming up. And it's just going to group all those items accordingly. You have filtering options within here. So if you want to filter this information by any of those column editors, you absolutely have the capability of doing so. You have your export options, so you can export it to Excel or PDF, and this is just going to provide it as that very similar grid view if you were to go to here in that Excel format, as well as you have options to switch between any of your sheet templated sheets within here as well by selecting on the name. And lastly, you do have the overall total amount of items as items selected, so you have 0 out of 4, so I have 4 items overall, as well as if I select on multiple items, I can go ahead and see that update and see those that information within here. So same sheets, the underlying structure of the data is going to remain the same. It's just a different approach on how you can work with this information in this list view. And if you ever want to go back to the grid view, it's as easy as just selecting on the edit and grid view option, and it will just bring you back. Okay. And then lastly, I do need to bring up the permissional side of things when it comes to this information. So With all new functionality, we do need to have some permissions governing access to that. So with the introduction of the resource sheets, we did add one more option within the role management. So I'm going to head back to admin settings once more, go to role management, and just make sure that you are aware that we have that sheet action all the way in the right. So second from the right, you will see access sheets, and then you'll have options that you will either give users view, edit, or no access to that sheet information. And so that wraps up the sheet portion of today's presentation. Just to reiterate, we have some additions to the sheet templates, just giving you the ability to create them on the resource side, the introduction of being able to use your sheets and associate them to your resources, import options that make sure you can import your information in a consistent manner, as well as in a bulk capacity. And then lastly, that view list view option when working with that information. So you can choose that alternative option if it's better suited to your needs. And with that being said, the next area that we'll be covering, and we have major enhancements too, is the attribute layout. And this is going to consist of when you open up one of your projects or open up one of your resources, how are those attributes going to be displayed? So previously, you'd be able to change kind of the positioning and create sections within your attribute, for the attribute layouts for your projects and resources. And we have made some slight changes, so you still have the full capabilities like you've seen before, just added some additional options within there, particularly around adding some new fields, as well as allowing to provide hints for your attributes, change the display name, as well as add some additional logic if you'd like. So just to kind of show you what that would look like, I have some on my project and resource management side of things where I can open up a resource. We can see I have my hints over here, just giving a little bit more information to the user if needed. You can sort your information. You still have the same sections like you've seen before. You have different options to display them. So it's not only drop-down lists for your some of the drop-down values. You have options to display them a little bit differently, as well as you can have some conditional logic if particular sections need to be displayed. So for example, I have something set up as if they're a developer, I go ahead and select that. I need to know what kind of skills they have as a developer. So by default, I have this as when it's set to developer, the system knows to show this additional attribute, highlighting some of the skills that may be needed so I can work with them. And so I have the same thing on the project side of things. So if I open up a project, I go to my attributes page, you can see I still have my top sections like we've seen before in the past, but I have the same kind of information within here. I have my fields, my project details. I can go ahead and show this information, as well as you can have conditional logic as well. So you can see I have this displayed slightly differently for each one, as well as I am controlling if this high priority field options are being displayed based off this project priority option here. So let's say this was medium, those would hide from the view. If it's set to low, it's still hidden, but if it's high, I can choose to show these particular fields within here. So a lot of cool options within here and a lot of ways to customize this and make sure that your users are seeing the information that they actually need to see. But I do want to make sure we go over how to go about and actually start applying some of these options. So if we go back to admin settings here and go to attribute management, just like you've done before in the past when you've set this up, you can go to your layout, and this is where you're going to kind of control the look and feel of this information. So if any of you have utilized the workflow forms options in the past associated to your projects, you'll be very familiarized with this particular layout because it's very similar to what we were doing within there. We've just added it on that project and resource attribute screen. So over here on the right, you can work with any of the particular attributes within here. You can drag them over to include them. You can click and add them over to add selective if you like. You have options to provide form elements. So if you want to create the new section, if you want to add that file option associated to the file management area that we talked about earlier, you can go ahead and add that in. Currently it's blocked for me because I have it here at the bottom, but you can put that in any position if you'd like, just by drag and drop and working within here. Additionally, if you need to help segment out your information, you have options over here to add just some lines within here to help just clean up the look and feel and make sure that your users are not just getting flooded with a wall of different attributes. You can break them up, provide that knowledge to make it the best user experience for them as possible. Additionally, you can add just text within here. So if you do need to have a section, you need to spell it out and say this section is only used, or really tell your users when they should use those particular fields. You can absolutely just add that in here, click into it. You provide the title, you provide that information. Maybe you want it to be a body and you want to spell out when this should be used and give them additional information just on those attributes. You absolutely can do so without having to add additional attributes within Tempus. Additionally, one of the things that you can do with any of the attributes in here is change the labels associated to those attribute values. A lot of the times, if you have information pulling from other systems, or you have naming conventions that are more so make more sense on the reporting side of things, but less sense from the usability and for your typical resources within Tempus, you can just change the labels to any of those without having any impact on how the data is structured on the back end. So let's say, for example, I know up here I have my project manager. That's the field that is currently an attribute in Tempus. That's what's used on the reporting side of things and used throughout Tempus at this point in time. However, maybe manager just makes more sense because project manager is confusing some of your users. What you can do is you can go ahead and here, and in the top area, you can just type out manager, just like that. And so now that's what's going to be displayed when I open up a project. All that information is still going to be associated to the project manager within here. However, it's just going to change the look and feel of that particular field for your end users. If you don't provide a value like I had before, it's just going to default to what the attribute is named to. Additionally, depending on the fields that you're working with, you can have some additional options when it comes to the look and feel of that information. So if you have your dropdown by default, like you're probably used to within Tempus, however, let's say you only had 2 or 3, maybe 4 options, and you really wanted to spell them out and have them go through the drop-down list, you can change those values. So for selection fields, you're going to see radio line and radio lists. So that's going to either provide it horizontally with the radio line or vertically with the radio list. It will allow them to select the value that they want to work with. And then additionally, if you're working with multi-selection, it's going to be a very similar approach. It's just going to be called a little bit differently, such as a checklist or a check line, just because it does allow you to select multiple values. Additionally, you do have the capability to show a hint within here. So this has come up many times with many of our clients where they just want to give the user a little bit more information on what this may mean or how they should go about filling out that this particular attribute. We had it in workflow forms, but we've also added it on the attribute side of things. So when we have this show hint right here, you do get this option where it says hint name. It just allows you to provide that a little bit of information within here. So let's see if I go down. I believe I have some. And it'll just say priority of the project, and I will say when high, fill out the additional fields. Just so the client, your users know that this may be an option, just gives them a little bit more information behind the field and what they need to do moving forward. And you can do that with any of the fields that you've added within here. And then the last option that I want to go through is the logic option, the ability to kind of control what is being displayed within the attribute layout screen based off of other values within here. So very useful, very powerful piece of functionality just to allow you to really narrow down what needs to be updated when working with a project or a resource. And to do so, it's going to center around 2 things. It's going to center around this is hidden information as well as this logic option. And the first point I want to go over is the is hidden. Since it's kind of a 2, you do need to do one before the other to really be able to utilize this capability. And what this is hidden option is going to do is it's essentially just going to hide the information within the grid. So down below I have, in my case, a section where I have my high priority fields, and I want to make sure that my high priority fields are only going to be displayed when my priority is high. What I do first is I create my high priority field section in this case, I make sure it's hidden, and then down below I provide all the fields that I want to be displayed when that is the case. So by default, since the whole section is hidden, it's not going to be displayed until a value of high is set. And to do that, we would then go to the underlying selection field, in this case, project priority. Make sure you have this add logic option enabled, and then say, okay, when this is high, I want to add the logic that is saying, show my high priority fields. So if I go to any of these other ones, you can see it's deselected, so they're not going to display. And this just makes it so it's known that whenever it is a high priority project, I need to unhide the fields down below in my high priority, so then my users can take action upon them. So very cool layout options, very powerful to allow you to really customize the look and feel and just make it a little bit more accessible for your end users when working within Tempus. So very excited to have this as well within the attribute layout side of things. And before we move on to some of just the other areas where we have some enhancements, I do want to touch on a couple more things on the attribute side. So this isn't going to be associated to the layout, but if we go to our attribute list over here and view our attributes, we have made 2 updates within here. One is a quality of life change to make sure users are and administrators are aware of some of the actions that they're taking and some of the consequences that you could potentially have if doing so, and that comes from changing the type of attributes within Tempus. So this is in Tempus, when you say you have a selection attribute and you fill out your projects, associated to your projects, the projects start filling up with values, and then from there, you go ahead and say, well, I actually want this to be a string field or a text field. It just makes more sense because it's not as, it's a little bit more flexible than we initially thought. Your thought would be, okay, we're gonna go in here. Let's say it was my project manager field. I go ahead and make that change, and I wanted to make it a text. Previously, it would say, okay, no problem. You go ahead, you hit save, and then after the fact, you say, oh, I go back in there, all my project manager information has been removed from Tempus. So that's been the design. It's the same functionality, but we have added a warning within here just to make sure that you are aware that there could be that potential data loss by changing the type of the attribute. So I'm going to change it to string. I need to be more flexible, and it just gives me that warning message just saying by changing it, you will remove all attribute values associated to that attribute, and if you want to move forward. So you can hit yes here, and you still have to save it one more time to actually move forward with that change. So you do 2 levels of kind of confirmation before doing so, but we just want to make it very apparent that there could be some adverse effects by making that change, and make sure the administrators are aware of that before actually moving forward. And then additionally, the last option that we have updated on the attribute side of things comes with the rich text fields. So in 8.1, we did introduce rich text fields, and we're just improving upon some of the options within here. And to very quickly go over that, we have added the option for bulleted lists. We also have numbered lists if you'd like. We have the ability to indent and outdent some of that information, as well as I believe we've updated some of the options when it comes to resource and resource list filters, just making sure that they can, you have the right capabilities to filter on them when the values are associated to them. So if I go to my resource list, and I'll create a resource field. Go ahead and create that. Now if I edit it, you should have the option to do this, and it's just updating these values with some more Boolean fields, especially such as the is enabled, is timesheet user, and is timesheet approver. Previously, I know is enabled and timesheet user, they were more so associated to system fields, so they weren't being displayed. However, we have added that option within here, so you can use those as the option to essentially control the resource and resource list values within here. So I'm going to go back to the home page, and we're going to be going through some of the other enhancements. It's not as much focused on one particular area, but we do have a lot of enhancements still added in this version that I would love to go over and cover with you guys today. And the first enhancement I did want to cover is an update to our help function. So this has been renamed to submit feedback, and this is just going to be an in-app feedback submission, as well as bug submission option within here. So if your users select on this option, what's going to happen is it's going to pull up this modal window where you can especially set essentially say, what is the issue that I am currently experiencing? You can specify the area that you want to have this associated to, as well as you can provide any additional information that you would like to, any images or files as well. Down below, you have an option to also include the error logs. This helps us tremendously when we're working through some of these issues, especially if it's a bug. So it just gives your users maybe a little bit more of an option to submit this information if needed. But you also have that on the feedback side of things as well. So if there's any feedback that you have the product you want to send to our team, it's just a streamlined approach for you to be able to, you or any of your users, be able to go in here, specify, say, oh, I want to submit some feedback, so then we can capture and potentially get it backlog or prioritized at a later point in time. I will say when you do open up a bug, it is going to create a support ticket within our environment, and then our support team and one of our support specialists will be able to assist you or the user through whatever bug or issue that you're currently experiencing. So just a more streamlined approach to working with some of those actions. And one of the other things I did want to mention within here is we still have the link to the help center right here. So if you want to have any of those kind of self-service documents to go through some of the functionality or expected behavior for some things, you can still go to our help center. As well as something we've added is the link to our API documentation. API documentation has been in the product for years now. It's just we haven't had a link really navigating you to it. So this will allow you to do so. Next, we have some additional enhancements on the project management things. So I'm going to go ahead and open up project management. And the first area I want to cover is just some enhancements on the project management grid. First, you will notice up here in the top left-hand corner is you do have counts. So this is just showing you your overall total. So we have 40 projects in Tempus that I have available to me, and that's why it's displaying 40, as well as it will keep the selected amount. So it's just allowing you to see how many projects you have selected, make sure that looks okay. If you're going to make a bulk update, shows you the overall total that you have access to, and just gives you a little bit more visibility on some of those options. Additionally, we have added the ability to take snapshots as well as clone projects on locked projects. So in the past, let's say we were to go in here and we lock a project. So we go here, we lock it. Before, if you wanted to essentially take a snapshot or clone from it, you do not have the capability, even though it really wasn't updating the underlying project itself, it was still prohibiting those actions. So we've opened that up a little bit so users can do so if needed. Additionally, on the project, and I'm going to unlock this since I'll be updating some of the information within here, we have made some enhancements on the financial side of things. So if we go to financials, we can go here, and what you can see is we have added this option to show and hide the total column. So right here, our grand total for each month or for each financial category you have here, you can see the overall total, just giving you the option to hide that, as well as giving you some additional options on actually manipulating the data and how it's being input. So in the past, we started with month, we've added quarter, but we continue to expand upon some of those financial options for which you can actually enter in your data. So you will see that we have added the project mode as one of them, just overall associated to this project, how much is it going to cost for the particular financial categories that you have, as well as you can do it at a fiscal level if you're using the fiscal month or fiscal quarter options. So you can bring in your fiscal months and your fiscal quarter and have your data essentially distributed and displayed that way. Outside of that, we've added some quick date filters in some of the screens as well. So if we go to build team, for example, you will see if we go to options, we have some date filters to filter the grid down below, as well as if we go to my project or single project allocation grid, I check it out and go to resource replace, you'll see very similar options for filtering on dates as well. And then lastly, the last thing on the project management side of things has to do with our Kanban view. So we've had Kanban boards associated within here for quite a bit. And let's see if I have one opened. If not, I can go ahead and I can just create a new storyboard. And one of the options within here now, and I'll just quickly select some values within here to get this populated. There we go. And that is the allow, expand, or not allow, expand in this case, and if it's expanded by default. So this just is allowing you to kind of control when you add multiple attributes. It can make the cards a little large and maybe a little bulky, and if you just want to condense the information that is displayed, we're just giving you the option to essentially show and hide that information. So you do have control for each board if that should be the case. Let's say I add some current phase here, maybe I add my end date, and let's say my senior leader. I go ahead and add that in. We can go here now, and since I had that expand option on, and you can see I can now expand and collapse it. So just a small enhancement there, but very helpful on the usability side of things. Very quickly, I want to touch on a couple enhancements, and one we've seen before, but just want to make sure that you're aware, is on the resource management side of things, you do have the same counting, so it's just showing you how many you had selected, as well as your total amount of resource available to you. And then additionally, you do have some options when it comes to blocking of your resources. This is particularly important when it comes to administrators, but we've had added the is locked option within here. So if you do ever need to unlock any of your users, you can do so within the resource management screen, as well as within the user management screen like you have in the past. We made some additional updates within the BPA Flatgrid screen as well, and these are going to be around assignment start and end dates, as well as some of the grouping options. So each assignment does have a start and end date based off of when allocation is assigned, and we've added that within the view. So within the insert columns, you will see start date and end date associated to the assignment, and that's going to be showing the first and last occurrence of allocation associated to that particular assignment. So we can see I've added those in here. I have 10/2/2023 and 12/28/2023. And if I go over here, you can see that's when my information has essentially occurred, even though the assignment or the project started in June. So just another way for you to kind of get a little bit more quick information, especially if you have tasks that start mid-project. You want to make sure you know when that particular assignment actually started, not when the project started itself. Additionally, we've enhanced the grouping options. So we've opened this up to more attribution. So now you have your currency field, your number, precision attributes, all being allowed to be selected within here, as well as one of the really cool ones is task name. We've also added, so if you do want to group your information by your tasks, you can absolutely do so now within BPA Flatgrid. Perfect. So on the resource request side of things, a couple small enhancements as well. One comes around the delegating option. So now when you delegate, if you are using the delegated option, you will also get an additional request being provided to you, just saying this resource request is delegated, as well as who it was delegated to. So we have access to that information. I had my colleague go ahead and give me or delegate a resource request to me earlier, and you can see that it was delegated to me. So I'm not the actual owner of this particular resource or the resource manager, but it is showing that it was delegated to me. And then additionally, if we open up a pending one, we have added an expanded by default option, which is controlled within the attribute layout option within attribute management and admin settings. So before you'd always have to go in here and essentially expand it. Now it can be expanded by default. Okay, couple more options here. First, roadmap very quickly. We go ahead and open up roadmap. One of the options we've added is end dates associated to the project that can be displayed within the Gantt bar. So if we go up here, I'll go back actually. If we go here, you will see a show end date option now, allowing you to do so. We've added some additional options within admin settings. One of them is very important on the workflow side of things. So within workflow management, if we go to my workflows, you now have the ability to actually assign not just individual people, but global roles and resource security groups within here. So just giving you more capabilities, especially in an automated basis and automatic basis, to allow people to be able to create those particular workflow type projects without having to go there each time. And then additionally, we have added advanced rate capabilities within the audit log. So when you update your advance rates within Tempus for your resources, you will see those show within the audit log. Okay, so the last The last type of updates that we will be covering today are some on the what if side of things, and just a bunch of quality of life improvements overall, as well as adding back some functionality that we previously didn't have within 8.1. And as you can see within here, we have introduced back the tile view for your models within the what if modeling side. So it's going to work very similar to what you probably worked with in the past, where we have our tile view. You can see all the models that you have essentially available to you. You have some sorting options within here, date created, A to Z, newest to oldest, as well as you have your searching capability within here. On the configuration side of things, I do want to mention that we gave a quality of life improvement just to show if the category is a positive or negative category when adding them within the model. Additionally, when you open up the model, we have added some of the same capabilities that we saw in roadmaps in terms of the show end date. So now, if we go up here to my options, you can see that same end date. So if you want to see the end date of the project directly within the Gantt view, you absolutely can by showing that option here. And then that should update as well as you're making updates and moving those projects around. Additionally, you can show the name within here. So if you want to see the project name, just to give it a little bit quicker visibility, so you're not looking over to the left, you can see directly within the Gantt bar what the name of the project is and how you can work with it. As well as if we go to the financial side of things, we've added some snap to options. So you can see I have Apollo phase 14. It's defined down below, but let's say if I go down here and I'm like, okay, I want to see what this information is and what the time frame looks like. You can just go ahead and select down the row, and it will just make sure that that snaps right to that project you were looking at or you clicked on. Also, we have froze the columns for financial category and financial type. So now if I go over to the right, you will still be able to see what that information looks like and what it's associated to. And then lastly, on the budget side of things, if you do include a budget, we just given some additional information to kind of make it apparent what budget you're working with. So I have my project budget essentially defined within Tempus or on the SuperGrid side of things. We can see the name as well as we can see the duration for which that budget is associated to. And so those are some of the quality of life improvements and just enhancements on the what if side of things. The last thing I just want to cover is some of the API updates that we have made. We won't go into much detail, but I want to make sure that everyone is aware of those updates that we have made. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of my what if side of things, and I'm just going to use this help function and go to my API documentation. And from here, I do want to call out some of the API enhancements we have made. The first one is on the project side of things, and that is a check if the name exists and checks if the external ID exists. So it just allows you to make this call to see if those particular projects or resources exist. We'll see here in a second on the resource, but just see if the project exists based off the name you provided, as well as if the project exists based off the external ID, just so you're not just using a get call to pull this information, expecting it potentially fail. And so you can use this, if it exists, you can make that call. If not, you can take the proper action to potentially create that project in this case. And we'll see something very similar on the resource side of things. So if we go down here, I find resources, you'll see the check name exists and check external ID exists, very similar to what I just covered. If it exists, it's going to return true. And so you can take your proper action. And if it doesn't, then it will return false and you take whatever action is after that. And then lastly, I did want to just mention that we have added those files. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to come back to that point that the file management is something that you can access programmatically through our RESTful API. So we have options to create files, update files, get your files, get the content of the files, as well as delete them. So I won't go into too much in depth on here, but if you wanted to essentially pull a file or pull a group of files in the content, you can do so by getting the files here, pulling all that information, and then using the get content based off the IDs provided to get the content within here. So that has all been exposed through our RESTful API. So we're excited to see what everybody does with some of those options and how they work with the file management side of things. And that has been a very quick hour. I do want to thank everybody for joining me today before I pass it back over to Samantha. But it's been a great opportunity to walk through all the new functionality and excited to see everybody upgrade Tempus to version 8.2. With that being said, though, I'm going to pass it back over to you, Samantha. I'll kick off the slide deck once more to wrap up today's presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt, for walking us through all of those wonderful changes that are in version 8.2. So like I said before, if you happen to miss the beginning of the webinar, 8.2 is available for development or lower environment upgrades right now. So please email your customer success manager to get on that schedule. They will be able to take care of you. Like I mentioned, you have a few more seconds here to download the release notes from the handouts area. However, the release notes are available in the Help Center now. Additionally, a recording of this video or of this website in the Help Center and on our YouTube probably tomorrow. We'll get that up as soon as we can. With that said, thank you for joining us today. I do see a few questions here. We will follow up on those separately, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.